Are you looking for something affordable, unique, and fun to give away in your merch orders or at your shows? Look no further. Hit me up today to order 1-inch buttons for your band, label, or other project. High quality metal pinback buttons for your friends and fans' battle jackets, messenger bags, and guitar straps. $35 for 100 buttons shipped in the US, $55 worldwide. Message me on IG at everythingremade to get started. Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Edie Quinn, and we have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get started, though, I'd like to remind you about our Patreon page at patreon.com/humanmachine, where I've recently started premiering pages from my debut graphic novel, Why I Hate the Festival. We're 30 pages deep now, and you can sign up there for as little as $3 a month to get caught up on it and read it daily, as well as all our other kinds of zines. That's not all, though, as you'll get exclusive access to music and other sneak peeks you won't see anywhere else. That's patreon.com/humanmachine. And now, I'd like to play something for you. You're hearing Callous by Latter, featuring my pal Meredith Haines on guitar and vocals. The song comes from their debut album, My Body Is My Sickness, which releases on September 13th on Damien Records.
The moment I realized that I wanted to be a musician happened to me at a really early age. I was 7 years old, so it was kind of like, I think it was like the mid to late 90s. And on the Disney Channel, they used to have these like concerts that they would televise from Disney World. And I saw a concert by like Leanne Rimes. I don't know if you remember Leanne Rimes.
Yeah.
And that was like a very core moment in my life for me. I was really into country music as a kid. I still am. And just kind of like watching her on stage. She was like she was young. She was maybe like 14 years old. So she wasn't much younger than me. And, I kind of realized like, oh, like I want to be a musician. Like this is what I was born to do.
Like you saw that and you were like, how do I do that?
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because like I actually didn't really learn how to play music until I was in my 20s. So it was like a long winding path, but like I'll never forget that moment because it really like very much stands out to me in my mind. And then also seeing My Chemical Romance when I was a teenager. I don't know if you remember, but like early My Chemical Romance sets were like very sloppy.
I saw them in a crowd of like 50 people, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like they were not the best. They were a good live band, but like they didn't really necessarily sound very good. And that actually also drew me to them because I didn't have any like natural inclination towards music. I grew up everyone telling me I was tone deaf and stuff, and that I would never be a musician. So I kind of like gave up for a while, but seeing Gerard on stage, like kind of doing it anyway, even though he was like off key and the band was like kind of a mess back. That also like was very inspiring to me because I was like, well, people, you know, they're still really good. And yeah, so like, you know, it was Leanne Rimes, but then also like years later, My Chemical Romance for sure.
Yeah. I should do like a pool for like the week before the episode airs to be like how who's got numbers on how long before My Chemical Romance comes up in this conversation, because like that is, if there's a band that I know you love, it's that, and that's
Oh,
awesome.
like for me
Yeah, for
specifically.
you specifically,
Yeah, I
like
think it came.
like 3 minutes. That's the pool.
It was 3 minutes. Yeah,
But
like literally.
yeah, that's perfect though. And I mean, you know, I was gonna ask, like, do you remember, like, was there a was there something specific about Leanne Rimes' performance that really resonated with you, or was it was the right time and the right place, or like what about it exactly, you know, was it like well choreographed, like just it sounded great? Do you remember like any of the details about what really, you know, like provoked that feeling in you?
Honestly, I was so young. I really don't remember.
Yeah.
But what I do remember about My Chemical Romance, to bring them up again,
Hmm.
like really what drew me to that was his stage presence.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't take, like he was captivating to watch, and it really showed me that, like, you know, it's not just about the music. It's really like going to shows and like going to live concerts is like this whole, it's an experience, and it's culture, right? Like
Sure.
it's a group of people's culture. It's an experience in of itself. It has, like, it's a home for people, and he's fun to watch, and all of these people are here for the same reason, and it's like the energy, everyone is feeding off of each other's energy. So yeah, I mean, I can't really remember anything specifically about Leanne Rimes because it was like 28 years ago at this
Sure.
point.
Sure.
But My Chemical Romance, like, you know, I was a little more like formed in my brain at that point. And like, for me, like, I remember really it was like his stage presence that, and like the community aspect of it. Cause
Hmm.
it was when they were like just starting to get big. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you know, when you said the part about it being on like a Disney thing, I can't help but think about these little clips that I've been seeing the last couple days of like Sum 41 or whatever playing at like and Newfound Glory or whatever playing at like some Disney awards, and uh there's like a big hologram projector behind them of Mickey Mouse with like a guitar, and I mean, of course I'm like, you know, I'm like, I don't know how to feel about that, you know, because I'm not, like, I know that's not for me, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know how to feel about that. Like, but I'm like, I mean, is this like, is this somebody like, is this some kid's like first experience with like punkish music? You know what I mean? More than likely.
Yeah,
And that's wild to think about, you know? There
it
could
is.
there could be some really sick screamo bands in about 15 years where somebody's like, yeah, I'm really into this shit, you know, that you can only find on the old blogs, and there's only 3 songs by this band, but like what really started me was this, you know, was this Sum 41 thing on this Disney award.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I mean, hey, it could, you know, I mean, you know, like, I think when you're young, like, you know, when you're that young, like, that's how you hear about music first, you know, like,
mhm,
oftentimes, like, I mean, obviously, I don't support Disney or the Disney
right.
Channel, you know, obviously, like, Walt Disney was a Nazi. At the same time, like, that was one of the only ways that I could find music at that age, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to think about like the ways, and then like the rabbit holes you go down, right? Like you start there, and then and then like you said, you end up on like blogs. Like finding bands that only released like 3 songs and they like inspire your whole discography.
Yeah, yeah. It is wild. And I mean, you know, we've like I've chatted with different folks about, the weird entryways where you can, become exposed to this stuff. And like, and like my kids, like, some of the it's every once in a while, like one, like my oldest, like she used to go to shows with me and she'd really dug it. She was into it. She makes like kind of like retro like wave stuff like herself now, which is
Oh,
cool.
cool.
But my other kids, like, they're not that interested in music, but they love like Weird Al, and it's like that's like also like an entryway to music for a lot of
It
people,
is.
because
It
it's like
is.
they hear this Weird Al song and, oh, that's funny, and then they want to hear the original and they're like, I kind of like that. And
Uh,
it's weird because then it's like the Offspring or Nirvana or something.
no, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And like, and not to bring up My Chemical Romance again, but
Why
like,
not?
yeah, but like My Chemical Romance was my entryway into a lot of weird music. Because I would watch interviews with them and then they would cite their influences.
Right.
Um, and they were really into like the Misfits and Iron Maiden and all that stuff. So then I started listening to that, and then I would watch interviews with like Danzig and stuff, and then I would get into the music that they were listening to, and it kind of just like snowballed from there, and here I am.
Yeah. Were you also like drawn to, like, you mentioned stage presence, and
Hmm.
of course this is wrapped up in that, but like they're very theatrical, and
Hmm.
a lot of your work is quite a bit of a performance piece,
Yeah.
and so that had to appeal to you as well.
Yeah, for sure. I've been performing. I mean, like girlhood is a performance, right?
Sure.
But like, but that aside, yeah, I've been performing since I was really little, because I really wanted to be a musician, but everyone, told me that I couldn't do it, and that it was the 90s, so it was generally like if you weren't born good at something, then you shouldn't do it. Um, so there wasn't a lot of like encouragement to try things that you weren't good at initially.
Hmm.
So I was really good at dancing. So I started dancing. So I've been performing from like a really young age. I went to college for dance. So I feel like performance is always wrapped up into what I'm doing. I mean, even like I kind of see like even like playing guitar, like to me like playing an instrument is performance, right? Like you're using your body in a way that you don't normally use it to like achieve an end goal. So like I don't know. To me it's like always performance, but yeah, like especially with like Ladder, like the new band, we really have like we're still experimenting with this, but like we really want to make it like more than just like a band, you know what I mean? We want it to be like kind of like an art project,
Hmm.
where like we're using like it's like kind of performance art, but we're also incorporating like John's artistic skills and mine.
Hmm. What you were saying about not feeling naturally musically inclined, but feeling like the dance aspect was there, strikes
Hmm.
me as interesting, because I take dance this is like someone who's ignorant of any kind of training in dance, so
Hmm.
feel free to shut this down. But I take
Okay.
dance to be very, like, it seems to require a lot of dexterity and rhythm,
Yeah.
which are fundamental to playing an instrument.
Oh my
So,
God. No, for sure. Yeah.
so what do you think the disconnect there was? What do you think it was, sort of entirely like people being negative and trying to throw up like a barrier to entry for you that like later when you overcame that, like was that just like yeah, that was bullshit all along, or was it did it really just amount to you having to sit down and break through whatever like the learning curve were on an instrument?
Yeah. No, it's funny. It's funny you talk about like dance and yeah, because it it is like it's funny because like dance like is a musical skill, right?
Right.
Like like it's like I feel like it's always easier for me to play an instrument if I'm like using my body, like it's easier for me to like hit the beat if I'm like kind of dancing along and stuff. But yeah, so that aside, like so I think there was a learning curve. Like I always had like good rhythm and things like that, but I did kind of always have an issue. And later I learned that there's kind of like pitch perception, right? Where you can kind of tell like when pitches are different, but then like pitch reproduction with your voice itself, which is like a muscle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like for whatever reason, I kind of struggle with I guess I did struggle with singing on key. It was just like something that was really inherently difficult. I could tell if I was off key, but it was just something where there was like that disconnect between my my brain knowing like what I should be singing and then actually replicating the pitch. But I find that when I'm screaming, it's a lot easier to be on pitch. Like I can just like immediately be on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I didn't even realize that that was like a thing that was possible, that like you can either like you can be off key if you're screaming.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
I didn't realize that until like we went into the studio for Ladder, because that was the first time I had screamed in my old projects, but not with like the full body way that I'm doing it now. And I realized like, oh, I'm on key, and I could tell when I was off key, and then I could be on key for the
Yeah.
most part,
Yeah.
unless it was like out of my range. And so I think it was really just kind of about like finding ways that were like how to do it in a way that worked for me. I guess
Yeah.
like maybe for me, like singing in like the traditional sense, like it's just more difficult for me to be on key. And it still is difficult. Like even with like the harmonies and stuff we did on the record, like John did those because I was like, if I do that, we're just going to be here forever. It's not worth it. Um, so I think it was just really about finding how to do it in a way that worked for me. And it took a long time. Like I think for me, like I'm a little bit more of a late bloomer with music. Like it wasn't until I really started screaming the way that I do now where I was like, oh yeah, like I can be on key, and I know how to do that now,
Yeah. I think there is a style of screaming that you can there is like sort of a thing you can do, just like a blanket style that will go over anything,
Yeah,
but like
for sure.
if you're trying to make it less separate from the music, for sure there's a lot more angling and stuff to do. But I think the and like I'm not like a good singer either, but like I think the best piece of advice that I ever heard was
Hmm.
that you just you don't try to get there. Like when you
Yeah,
hear the like you don't try to get there, you don't work your way up to it. You go straight there.
yeah,
And like that's the best piece because like that's where you screw up, is like you're trying to like
yeah.
get there.
That's good
And
advice.
yeah,
Yeah.
you have to just go straight there. And that obviously takes like practice, but like
Hmm.
yeah, you to the other way just that's never going to work. It just doesn't like but I don't know. I think for me it we might be sort of similar in that like I can't really sing like unless I'm being like as loud as I possibly can. Like
Yeah,
I can't
same.
control it. Like
Same.
so that's what's tricky like, you know, because you're trying not to make this clean vocal or however you want to put it. You're trying not to make that a scream, but like
Right.
you have to be loud to
Right.
like get there. So
Right.
it's tricky. Yeah, but I don't know. I think, you know, that I think that just like learning how to play guitar, um, learning how to do vocals is a lot of fun and it's challenging. And the only major difference that I can tell so far is that you can really break your instrument for good if you're not careful. In the
Oh
case
my
of
God.
vocals, you know, you can't buy
Yeah.
another one. So
I know.
yeah. So that's the
I
thing, you know, don't give yourself polyps. Like try to learn to do this the right way. Don't just be like, you know, I don't care, you know.
I know. I totally don't sing the right way.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I guarantee you I've got polyps on mine and that's why like some of the things that are harder for me are harder than they should be because like when I was, you know, when I was 20 something years old and I was just like I don't really care. I'm not going to live until I'm 30 anyway. Like so what's the difference? Like and like I, you know, just screamed. I didn't worry about how it came out or how it was supposed to come out. I didn't worry about like I was like what's a diaphragm, you know? And
yeah,
and I did all kinds of things wrong, and like I'd be a way better singer now if I didn't do those things wrong. So that's just like the putting that out into the ether for people to. Yes, we want to express ourselves. Yes, the moment is super intense, but preserve yourself too. You know, we need y'all here making art when you're old too. You know, so
for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's like on my to-do list to like learn how to sing like
to get
cuz
it
it's like
done.
I
Yeah.
yeah, cuz yeah, like I've been like actually pretty good with my voice. Like it's fun. Like it's like I'll be tired after a show, but I'll recover. But it's like the second I get sick, it goes out. It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really yeah. I'm like I need to learn.
I need to learn just like if there's a long drive to a show to just shut up because that's my problem. Like I haven't
Oh my
seen
god,
my friends in forever
I
and we're in the
know.
car and we're listening to music and we're just like yap and it's mostly me, I'm sure, but like
No, same.
and then we get to the show and I'm like, I don't know why, but my my voice is so tired.
Oh my god, I know. We're going on tour in September, and I told my bandmates, I'm like, no one let me yap during the day.
Yeah, we got to
I'm like,
chill.
I'm not allowed to yap. Like because
Yeah.
that's my problem too. Like I'm a yapper, you know, like
Yeah.
I'm a big yapper and like I'm like because that's what's gonna get me in trouble. Like if I don't talk during the day, I'll be totally fine.
Yeah. It's just it's hard. It's honestly hard cuz I mean, it's like this is what you've been waiting for, you know, and you're just like you're so excited and like chatting
I
and it
know.
makes the time go faster and just like it's that's what it's all about. It's like having these moments, you know, on your tours and stuff that you remember forever and you know, you sometimes you just got to be the responsible one and just be like uh I'm going to put on like a podcast or whatever and not talk at least for an hour, you know? Like but
Yeah.
yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
So
It is.
you you finished the album a while ago. I heard the album.
We did.
It's
Yeah.
incredible. I love
Thank you
it.
so much.
It's definitely one of my favorite things that I've heard this year, and this year has been stacked with good releases, great
Thank
releases even.
you.
But I you know I could I could start just sort of rambling off like stuff that it reminds me of. And
Yeah.
I don't know if people would get the same things from me, but it's like, you know, you've talked about My Chemical Romance. I hear I hear some of that in there. I hear less of that than something like Blood Brothers or something. I hear more of
Big
that.
inspo for
Yeah,
us. Yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, I even hear like, I don't know. This is like a left fielder maybe, but like Interpol or something. I
Hmm.
hear all kinds of things that are playing with one another, and
Hmm.
and and little tugs of war in the uh, sort of fabric of the like dynamics, right?
Yeah.
What was your like process like writing the album? Was it always gonna be let's write an album, or was it just the band started, you're writing songs, you realize you're onto something, and it goes from there?
Yeah. So the way that Ladder kind of formed was kind of weird, because John and I have been so John. Basically, the way the band works is like John and I are the only like writing members of the band, and we do like all it's like we're the two members of the band, but then we have two people play live with us.
Sure.
So John and I were actually playing with a bunch of other people. So like I didn't know him at all. I posted on Instagram like who wants to be in a screamo band, and I think you also responded like, oh, if you can come to Indiana, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh, that would be so fun.
you just got to mention it, and I'm there. I'm just like, yes, let's do this.
Literally. Yeah, but I think so a bunch of people responded. We were kind of playing together. It was kind of like hard to coordinate schedules. So what ended up happening was like John and would just be in like the practice room alone, just writing, like jamming together. So, eventually I was like, hey, why don't we just like do our own thing? So we did. And then it was originally kind of just like for funsies, to be honest. Like, and then yeah, we kind of were like, oh, like why don't we play a show or something? So we just like wrote some songs to play a show. And then yeah, we were like, why don't we, record these songs? And so the way that John and I write is like the way we write together is like very seamless, where like we'll just jam and then we'll be like, okay, that's the song, right? Like we just jam and then we record it and then we're like, that's the song. And then we go back and we kind of like edit. So there's very little of us kind of working on our own. We very much like, it's a very collaborative process. The only thing that happens on our own is like I write the lyrics, and that doesn't happen with John. That happens just kind of like on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we just write together like super seamlessly. I feel very lucky to have like a creative partner like John, because he has like pop sensibilities that I don't have. Because I'm very like noisy and chaotic, and he has a lot of like good ideas to kind of make it like a little more catchy, you know. And then we went into the studio with Pete from Bricktop, and yeah, he also kind of like helped out with like kind of just like not shaping the structures or anything, but just kind of like, you know, contributing like his ideas and helping the songs kind of just like be better than they already were, you know?
Yeah.
So it's honestly like a very collaborative process from start to end, which is great. Yeah, I just like love the way the band functions. I feel very lucky, after so many years of just like being in bands, you know, I feel very lucky and like privileged and blessed to have like landed in this position with like someone who like I work so seamlessly with, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it can be like pulling teeth, you know, with with the
It,
wrong set of people, you know, that aren't like that don't work the same way as you or whatever it
oh
is, you know.
yeah. Oh yeah. And in the past it was, you know, not with the current band that I'm in, but like, yeah, like I've been through so many situations like that. And, you know, I really never thought that I would end up in like a band situation that like worked so well for me. And it's just like I just feel really lucky to have that now. And you know, in terms of like the influences, Blood Brothers are like one of my favorite. They were one of my biggest influences for this record, and they're one of John's favorite bands too. So I think like that. I think our like the influences we have in common really shine through, you know, because we both love the Blood Brothers. We both love like Botch. And then I think like maybe the stuff like Interpol and stuff like that's probably more like John's input, you know?
Hmm.
Because I don't, you know. So yeah, but it's nice to like, you know, have two people from different like convergent worlds to like kind of combine and make a project. Cause I think like that's really where like you can really make some interesting stuff, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. For sure. At what point did you sort of realize that you were working towards an album as opposed to like, you know, hey, these are some cool songs. Like at what point were you like, wait a minute, like this doesn't feel random anymore.
Yeah, it's a pretty short album, so it's only like 7 tracks, I think, and 2 of them are like noise tracks, but we, you know, we like I said, like we want it to be this like art project where we're and you know, I do noise obviously.
Hmm.
So I think like we were kind of realizing that like when we were in the studio. Like, oh wait, this is like because I think it was like we were originally going to just do a demo, you know, like it wasn't really going to be like anything. Like we weren't planning on like we were going to just release it, you know, but I think like when we were in the studio, we were like, "Oh wait, like this is pretty good music." Like I don't really think we realized that like till we got into the studio, you know? And then I was like, "Oh, hey, like there's these like gaps in the music. Like why don't we add some like noise stuff since I do that, you know? Like fuck it. Who fucking cares? You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
whatever." And I think like that none of like we didn't really realize that we were like making an album till we were like in the studio.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you feel like the did you feel like the that hearing them back was just kind of like it cemented the idea that like the songs belong together in a way that like playing them just gosh, there I go with that hi-hat again. Um did it like you know sort of cement that idea that they were a unit as opposed to like, you know, when you're just like playing them and it's just kind of like, well, this one feels a bit different than the other one, but then you hear them back and it's like same recording situation, same, you
Mm.
know, and then it's like, wait, this has a flow to it kind of thing.
So, yeah, I mean, the way, I don't know, like, I feel like I approach that kind of stuff from like a very like noise perspective where I'm like, if I put it together, then that's like reason enough. You know what does
Okay.
that make sense? Like,
Yeah, sure. And I
yeah,
mean,
like,
you mentioned like you felt like, oh, this like needs something to tie it together. So you were like you were adapting to that situation as well
right,
as welcoming it or
right.
whatever.
Like we kind of like picked the songs and then we like adapted to it because we were like, oh, like these songs sound kind of weird right next to each other, you know? So
Mhm.
why don't we like add this like transition, you know? And then it's cool because, you know, then like I can add in like my own unique stuff that like wouldn't have shined through on the other songs because they're really just like, you know, like rock songs. Um, so yeah, so it really was kind of just like so before we went into the studio, we laid out all of the songs we had or like all of the ideas we had, which was like 10, you know, and
Mhm.
then we just narrowed them down and then we kind of adapted based on like how they sounded next to each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Sure. So did you record everything or and then
We
you separated them
no,
later or
we just recorded what's on the album.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
Okay. Is it sort of like the songs you didn't do before or sort of like in the back pocket or do you have plans for those already?
They're kind of in the back pocket. I think some of them were kind of just like discarding. So we started writing the second album this week, actually.
Oh, okay.
So like the way we work is, you know, like we kind of jam, then we're like, okay, that's the idea, right? And then I tab it out. Like I have a tab book for this band. And then we're like, okay, um, so basically like some of them we have a folder in like the Google Drive that's like LP2 and like a lot of them are kind of in that, you know, because I think we're going to kind of just go through everything and be like, okay, like what do we want to like work on, but I think some of them will probably just get like lost to the ether, to be completely honest,
Yeah.
because I think like especially when you're just starting to play with people, you kind of like have a couple of things where you're like, this isn't really, you know, like it doesn't really maybe necessarily fit with everything else.
Yeah.
And I know I just talked about just like making things fit, but you know, like it's songs that maybe you don't really feel like reflect who you are as a
Yeah,
band, you know?
I always take that as a challenge.
Really?
I always like
That's cool.
really am like I can make this work. You
I like
know,
that.
like
I like that.
and I don't know if it always does, you know, but I'll try, you know.
I
Um
I I like what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah. I think
It's not for
I think
everyone, but yeah.
like yeah, I think there's always a way to make something fit. I think we have a lot of songs. So I think,
I've
you know,
written a
I
few
think
songs.
you've written a few.
Yeah, I've written a couple.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple in your back pocket.
I got
Yeah.
a couple. No big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's like, you know, it's kind of all like TBA at this point. I know we
sure.
also want to make like a weird like ambient album at some point. So maybe some of those we'll like figure out how to get them on there. We have all kinds of ideas, you know, and it's like nothing is like discarded, you know, like no, I mean they might get discarded, but like as of right now, like we're new, you know, so
Yeah.
like nothing, there's so many possibilities at this
Yeah.
point.
I mean, as long as you have the tabs and you have the demo recordings or whatever, like nothing is, you know, maybe you just get that thing later where you're just like, you know, we've made we've made we've securely established like a this is what we sound like people know that. So what about this like left hook, you know, or
Right.
you know,
Right.
it's I mean, like you said, and that's like the thing about you know the environment we live in now with like being able to record even just pulling out our phone or whatever, you know, like
Yeah.
you can just there there's a there's a song that I wrote 25 years ago, and I was writing this guitar part, and I just um I didn't I like couldn't move. I was like so infatuated with this guitar part. I was upstairs in my old house and I was like, I have to record this right now before it changes at all, right? I was
Yeah.
just like
Yep.
being whatever about it.
Literally.
And I picked up like a phone and I called my voicemail and I left it in the voicemail
Oh
like
my God.
and like we don't have to do that anymore. We don't have to come up with any kinds of ways to do that. We just pull out our phone, hit voice memo, and we have something that's practically demo quality, you know? So
Yep.
yeah, it's really cool because I mean one thing that one thing for me personally is like I am like so moody. I'm really good at like being I'm really good at knowing that and
Yeah.
not letting that become other people's problems, you know, but
Yeah.
like I am really moody and when I record something today based on like my knee hurts real bad, I didn't get any sleep, I feel hungry all the time. I don't know what that's about. Like
Yeah.
it's going to be bad. It's going to be moody. It's going to be whatever. And like 2 days from now, I took a walk in the sun and like everything's great. And I just had an awesome sandwich. And like I'll
Yeah.
hear that and it's like somebody else did it. And
Yeah.
like that's fantastic
Yeah.
because you know it's it's your ideas, but it's just like where did that come from? I would never do
Yeah.
that today, you know?
Yeah. I will say I have all the tools at my disposal and like all the knowledge to, just like bring, like just to demo our ideas. Like, I got a master's degree in sound art. So it's like, I know how to, like, we could record our ideas and our demos in like a much better way or like,
Hmm.
quote, better unquote.
Sure.
But to me, like the iPhone recordings, like, it captures something that I feel like those don't like that recording process doesn't capture. Like it captures like to me like what you were saying like it captures like who you are in that moment. Like I don't know why like what it is, but like I think it has something to do with the fact that like it capture like I don't know how to explain it. It's like an immediacy to it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, like because that's like really what happens. We're like, we'll be jamming and we're like, oh shit, we have to record this. Like this
Yeah.
is good, you know?
Yeah.
And it captures that. And I think like for me, like I always have more ideas when I'm hearing like when I'm hearing like, oh, like the immediacy of it. And I think one other thing I'll say too about the iPhone recording is like, I think for whatever reason, like there's something about the microphone on like the iPhone or whatever, where like, for whatever reason, when I listen back to our recordings, like I can hear like overtones and I can hear like weird reflections in the room that like kind of give me ideas for leads
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
I don't hear when we're demoing in a different way.
Yeah.
Because we could demo like recording the room, but like I don't know, there's just something about it, like there's just something about it where like I really strongly prefer, like I know that we could record them in a more, in a way that
Yeah. Set up like 6 mics or whatever, you know, and just like,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But like to me, like there's just nothing like that. And I really do feel like because when we recorded with Pete from Bricktop, we sent it like that's what we sent him. We sent him like the iPhone demos. And I really feel like he really captured like the emotion
Yeah.
behind the songs. Whereas like, we have recorded like, straight into Logic in the past. We have demoed that way, but it just doesn't have like it doesn't have the same feel.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah.
I think that like I think that, you know, just hitting record on your phone and sitting it down, zero stakes, right? So
Right,
that's the
right.
first thing that
Yeah,
I think is like zero stakes. But you
right,
start setting stuff up, then you start putting that little bit of pressure on yourself. Oh, I got to play this good. I got to play this
right,
right, or whatever.
right,
Um, and the other thing about the overtones, I think, is still in that first statement, which is just like the less pressure, then the more you're just sort of smacking your guitar and you're
right,
hitting those strings that you aren't supposed to hit necessarily,
right,
but they're
right.
there and they're
But you're like, hey,
creating.
this sounds good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you're creating that, like those overtones, undertones, or however you put it. Like you're
right.
creating that by like essentially not giving a fuck, and
Exactly,
just beating your guitar. But
exactly.
yeah, it's no matter like how low key you keep it, like hitting record the is the first stressor, and then
Right,
everything after that. And it's just like I think that there's something to that you can take all the way back to like writing the first set of songs or whatever. Like I feel
right,
like when I hit a new project and I'm just like, I don't care what this sounds like. I'm going to let
right,
it decide. Like that is, you're so liberated by whatever you want to do that
right.
you're just like, and these were sets of songs, you're like, and then the next you're like, well, now we know what we sound like. How do we do that but different?
It's
And it's,
pressure. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just like that's a whole different thing, but it's like, yeah, it's just like the stakes, the more stakes
Hmm.
there are, like the the less you can just be like, I don't care. Let's go. Let's have fun. Let's jam, or whatever.
Right, right.
But yeah, it's, I don't know. It's interesting. Getting into I love getting into like, when you're recording, and I love being like, oh, I'm going to make sure I only play the notes I'm going to play. But I also love the other thing too. So I try to do a bit of both if I can.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And
so-
I love, yeah. And I mean, we had so much fun like in the studio with Pete,
yeah.
cuz he really like brought our songs to life, like it was like we had these ideas, but he really like, we weren't like, oh yeah, like Pete, we want you to like produce our record, but like he totally did. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he totally did. And like, yeah, I mean, yeah. And it's like, yeah, I think both are good. I mean, yeah, there really is something about just writing like that first set of songs where you're like, I don't give a fuck what this sounds like. It's just
Hmm.
for fun,
Hmm.
you know? But then like people like it and there's more pressure, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm. Yeah. It's it's such a weird, like, bunch of beams to balance on, because like you're first and foremost doing this for yourself, your own enjoyment, and you're
Hmm.
doing it like in cooperation with your bandmates, and
Yeah,
how much fun that is. And then
right.
it's like the other things might be like the furthest thing from your mind, but it's like, yeah, you don't want to repeat yourself, you don't want to rest on your laurels, you don't want to,
Nope.
and so it becomes this whole other thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
before we sort of like I want to take a step in a different direction, and then
Yeah.
when we go to close out the conversation, we'll talk about when the album comes out and all that stuff. But you mentioned like your noise work, and
Yeah.
you perform under the name MAIR. I'm
I
assuming
do.
I'm saying
Yep.
that right. And you release a full length, like, I mean, kind of like, to me it's like more than full length. It's like it is a very full body of work,
Yeah.
um, called "The Purity You Took From Me Cannot Be Replaced." That was in October of 2022. Um,
Yes.
you had Mark McCoy do the artwork. I thought that was, I saw that, I was like, that's that, not like, not unexpected because of the music. It's just like when you see Mark McCoy's name there, you're like, whoa, that's a pull. recording that album different than like your other experiences recording? Did you do it all yourself and then you're mixing it with someone else? Or I should have looked at the liner notes a little bit better, but
Oh no, yeah, I did that whole thing myself.
okay.
Yeah, I recorded it because basically what happened was I started doing so before I started Ladder with John, I was kind of just like doing noise because I kind of wanted to like be doing some form of like musical activity, you know. So I was like doing it all by myself and I was just recording, like I was just doing live sets. And then Travis from Damien Records reached out to me on Instagram and was like, hey, like, your stuff's really cool. Like, want to put something out with me? And I was like, yeah, because Travis is awesome. He's like a real one, you know, big supporter of the scene, like every scene. And so, yeah, I recorded that by myself. I recorded it, I mixed it, and then he had someone master it. Because I don't know how to master. But yeah, I don't really know how to mix. I just kind of like do what sounds cool to me.
Yeah, I mean,
Which
that's
is
it
mixing,
basically.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I do know how to mix. But yeah, I actually did that whole thing in like a week.
Wow.
I kind of just like sat down and I did like, okay, maybe I did it in like a week and a half.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
that's just like you were pouring coffee straight into your eyeballs, just
it,
like
it
and
was
just
like, it was okay. But like, for whatever reason, like having like an insane deadline like that makes me feel, cause I'm very much like a person who, number one, only does things at the last possible second. That's very much me. And then number two, very much motivated by deadlines. So like I won't do things unless I have a deadline. Like we didn't have any songs written until we had a show set up. You know what I mean? Like very much not a person who will just like make things to make things. Like I'm very much like I have to have a reason to. And that's always like an interesting push and pull in my mind where I'm like, am I really an artist? And yes, I am. I'm just motivated by different reasons.
well,
But yeah,
I'm gonna speak to that briefly in that I don't believe that there is an artist that is only working when they're physically working. So, like,
hmm
what I mean by that is that all the ideas you're running through in your mind, that's working, you know?
right.
So, just the fact that, like, you sat down to record 3 days before the deadline or whatever doesn't mean you weren't working on it before that. Like you had the idea, oh, I'm going to take this clip from Ferris Bueller's and I'm going to tweak this and I'm going to do like you had the idea. You didn't just like, or I mean, not maybe I can't speak to that specific idea or whatever, but you know what I'm saying? It's like you like I feel like artists, like we need to start giving ourselves more credit. Like we're not just like
No,
sitting
for
around.
sure.
The brain is working on things, like even when the hands and the vocal cords and whatever else we're using are not.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's like for me, like, yeah, like it's very much a way of being. Like that's how I make sense of the world, right? Like
Yeah.
how I make sense of like things that like how I make sense of like things that happen to me, especially bad things. Like I make art about it. That's just what I do. And
Yeah.
like regardless of like yeah, like it's like I'm often given deadlines, so it's like that's just kind of how it ends up happening. But like I bet if like no one ever wanted to hear my work or whatever, I'd still probably do it. It's just that I end up having a lot of deadlines. But yeah, I mean, like for me, like that record, so like I was diagnosed with herpes in 2021, which was like a very, very like very intense experience for me. So like that whole album is about that. And like that was really the only way. Like it wasn't until I made that album where I was like, okay, I'm good. Like I feel like I've fully processed this experience. And like, I think like, yeah, like that makes me an artist, right? Because like that is how I made sense of that experience. Like there was no other possible way for me to make sense of that experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so that, you know, that like the noise stuff is like a very like solitary thing. And Mark McCoy, yeah, so Travis from Damien Records like knows Mark.
Oh,
And
okay.
he actually reached out. He was like, "Oh, I really want Mark to do the art for this." And you know, I saw like Mark did these like photo collages, and I was like, I really would love that. And like he just nailed it. Like, you know, because basically like I kind of explained to him like, you know, what the record was about, and he just like he couldn't have done a better, like
Yeah, it's
it couldn't be more perfect.
it's
Yeah.
wild. It's wild. It's really wild.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Now, you also um, did you spearhead, or like are you just like a part of the soft noise Skillshare? Is that like your baby, or like
Yeah.
what? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the Soft Noise Skillshare is a like a workshop. It's like a workshop series for like, you know, women and gender expansive folks. Um for you know, like, you know, the participants, like we don't really, you know, allow like cisgendered men, but like pretty much, you know, anyone else is welcome.
Hmm.
And yeah, so we do like workshops on different like sound things. It kind of ranges. We do like, you know, DIY recording workshops. We also do um you know, we've done contact mic building workshops, synthesis, all kinds of different things. So yeah, I did kind of start that a couple of years ago, and I have like a collaborator now who helps me. But yeah, if anyone who's listening is in the Chicago area and wants to come, if you want to come too, if you're ever in Chicago, obviously you're more than welcome. Um, yeah, like yeah, we just got a grant from the city too.
That's wild.
So
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah. So it's really just to like pay artists more.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
I
yeah.
need to learn how to build a contact mic for sure. I'll have to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean I'm happy to help you if
Yeah.
you want like yeah, I could show you. But yeah, please feel free to come if you're ever like wanting to come to Chicago.
Was that did you start this sort of like, is this going all the way back to you seeing that Leanne Rhymes and being like, "Hey, it needs to be easier for people like me to get into this stuff."
Kinda, yeah. So I think a lot of it is driven by like, you know, the fact that I didn't start playing music till I was 23. Like I very much like grew up with like the narrative of like, oh, I'm not a musician, right? Like
Mhm.
because I'm not naturally inclined to be a musician, like I'm just not one, and that's that be all end all. And I think like a lot of people are kind of taught like, you know, they're not creative, they're not musicians, they're not this, they're not that. And like I've kind of like made it part of my life's work to just like deconstruct that narrative because it's not true.
Mhm.
And so it's motivated by that. It's also like very much modeled off of something that's very similar in Philly called the Sound Museum Collective.
Oh, okay.
Back when I lived in Philly, I was like very loosely involved with them when they were just getting started. But it's a similar idea. You
Yeah.
know, I think I'm not entirely sure. Their workshops may be open to everyone at this point, but I think at first it was like just women and gender expansive folks. It might still be that. I'm not sure. But it's very much modeled after that,
Yeah.
you know, like, so yeah, but it's also motivated by like my desire to like, you know, that anyone can be a musician if they want to. It's not like, music is such like this mystified process where it's like, you know, you just magically have songs and stuff, but it's like you can learn how to do those things. It's a skill like everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. I think that um I think that doing the work to like ungatekeep music is like essential and everything. But
For sure.
also I am completely mystified by the fact that this piece of wood with some metal strings on it can do all the things that I can make it do. So like
Yeah, no,
it's you have to put your hands on it, you have to work at it, you have to actually do the thing, et cetera, et cetera. But I also am like, whoa, this is magic,
no,
you
for
know?
sure.
Yeah.
It is magic.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it like that's, but like you're right. Like
Yeah.
it is magic.
It's just that anyone's capable of it. You just have to,
Correct.
pick up the wand or whatever. Um, but yeah, as we're sort of like closing out, we'll go back to the latter record. I know, there's two videos out now. They're awesome. People should watch them. But when is the actual album release? Did you say it was the 22nd of September? Am I remembering that wrong or
So yeah, so the album comes out September 13th.
13? Okay, I don't know what it
Yeah.
is. Well, that's a better
And
number
then
anyway. So
yeah, there's no pre-orders. So yeah, like it can only be ordered that day. Well, I mean you can order it after too,
after,
but
right.
yeah, like there's no pre-orders because a lot of people have asked me, like, you can only order it that day
Yeah.
or after. And then it will like be on like, streaming services and Bandcamp and stuff. But then and then our album release show is September 15th at Shuba's in Chicago. And then after that, we're gonna go on tour from the 23rd to the 30th to New York and back.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. Do you
Yeah.
have like bands that you're super excited to play with? Specifically?
Yeah, I'm really excited to play with these bands in Columbus, Severed Legs, Pickpocket.
Oh, Pickpocket, yeah.
Yeah, I'm also really excited to play with Kaiba, I think that's how you pronounce
yeah,
it.
yeah.
In Pittsburgh. I'm really excited to play with Max from Ultra Deluxe's new band, She Chose Violence.
Oh, right.
Really excited to play with like Kiyande Ameda.
Is that how you say that? I don't know how to say that.
Oh God, I hope so. I could be wrong.
I'm like, I have to have them on the show soon just so I know how to say their name.
Literally, I'll let you know when we play with them in New York.
But also because they're a sick band, but also because I need to know how to say the name.
Yeah, they are sick. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then really just excited to like see old friends, make new friends. Haven't been on tour. I mean, I've done some like little tours for Noise, but haven't been on like a DIY tour like this in like 5 years. Definitely a little nervous about how expensive it is. But I think I'm optimistic, I'm manifesting that we
break even.
I'm manifesting that we'll break even.
Yeah.
I'm manifesting.
You're manifesting that other people will carry your stuff for you.
Oh my God, I love when other people carry my stuff. That's my favorite.
Because when you said like, oh, I did some Noise shows, like you probably had some stuff to carry, but like not like a 412 or whatever.
Oh my God. I honestly like, please. When I was younger, people would offer to carry my amp for me. I would be like, no, I can carry it myself.
I got this.
Now when people offer to carry my amp, I'm like, okay. That makes sense.
Thank you.
I'm perfectly capable of carrying it myself, but like if someone's offering to carry it for me, hey.
I'm going to sit in a chair and fan myself and eat grapes or something.
Exactly. I just like I would get so offended, and now I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't know how
I'm
many times I carried a 4x12 down basement stairs by myself for no good
literally
reason, you know?
right.
Just
And
like,
now if
why?
someone offers to, yeah, and now someone offers to carry it for you, like obviously you would take them up on it, right?
You're like, bless you. Thank you very much. But
Exa-
yeah,
exactly.
awesome.
Exactly.
Well, it was a pleasure chatting with you, Meredith. I wish it had
Thank
not been, I don't even know when we met. It was probably 12, 13 years ago or
It was
something.
probably a really long
Yeah.
time ago. Yeah,
Um,
I don't remember how we met.
yeah. Well, I mean, you were just like at one of our shows in Philly, and I was like, "You live here?" or something like that. Um,
Yes.
but tell people where they can follow you, and stay tuned for all the details coming up with
Oh,
the tour and everything.
yes. So you can follow us on Instagram at, hold on, let me make sure I got it right.
I know you always have to put like a dot or a number, so yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. It's latter.band.
Okay, perfect.
And it's LATTER. People
Right.
always think it's LADDER, but it's LATTER.
Well, see, that's what you do right there with the songs that you're not sure about. You release them as ladder with the
Oh
DD.
my God, that'd be hilarious. Yeah, that would
Or
be
you do a
hilarious.
split record and it's
Ladder,
ladder and
ladder.
ladder. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because people always think we're ladder. Yeah.
Right.
And then you can follow us on TikTok if you want to see me in a scene elder learn how to use TikTok. It's really funny because I don't know what I'm doing. At latter latter.band.
And that was my conversation with Meredith Haines. Thank you so much, Meredith, for taking the time to chat with me. Do make sure you check out My Body Is My Sickness, available September 13th on Damien Records, because I've heard the whole thing and it is incredible. Until next time, take care and do good things.